Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of our program. Happy to be here with you live and national. Our telephone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And lots going on today in the news, right? Pete Hegseth getting grilled today. We're going to dig into that just after the bottom of the hour. But first, I want to get into some of the crazy that's going on. We've got a lot of crazy going on tonight. Lots of crazy. Again, you're welcome to call. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. We're going to do Pete Hegseth at the bottom of the hour, and then we're going to be discussing, prior to that, we're going to talk about Nicolas Maduro and his threats against America. I still haven't heard Biden address any of this. Now the governor of Puerto Rico is weighing in saying, hold on a second, this guy just said he was going to invade the United States by way of Puerto Rico, and he was going to use Brazilian troops and the battalions of Peru to do it. Now, it might have been hyperbolic. It might have been satirical. But either way, I mean, have you ever heard somebody speak that way? Okay, I have. I heard John McCain once say, we're going to bomb Iran. I did hear that. And I guess, they could have taken it the wrong way, and they likely did, right? Because they're constantly sponsoring terrorism all over the globe, oftentimes aimed at the great Satan and the little Satan, the United States and Israel, in their opinion. So I could see why we shouldn't do that type of thing. And I'm not saying that we did, but when someone does it to us, I think we should respond, even if it's just snarky. You can't just take that stuff lying down. You got to stand up for yourself. Anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit. Also going to get into some conversation on crime. The other day I was scrolling through, through the social media. I saw a video on Instagram, and it was this, no, it wasn't. It was a New York Post article on Instagram, where a group of illegal aliens, they attack a guy, and he happens to have a knife on him. So he starts stabbing them. They run away. I think they got caught and everything. But bottom line was, people are tired of being bullied on the subway. And things are pretty out of control. And at the time, I texted the owner of a big radio station I used to work at in New York City. And I said, hey, things are getting out of control. Have a Happy New Year. And he said, yeah, things are definitely out of control. So I said, you should come on the radio. We should talk about it. And he's going to be coming on a little bit. And that's John Catsimidis, the only of the two billionaires I've ever met, right? You got Donald Trump and John Katz. That's about it. I don't have any more billionaires. Waiting for Elon Musk to come on the show. Elon Musk, can you hear me? Testing. Is this thing on? I have a lot of questions, from Neuralink to the sync at Twitter to so much more, but not tonight. Right now, I want to get into a little bit of the international stuff. Well, maybe not right now. We'll do the international stuff a little bit later. What I want to do right now is give you a little bit of a taste of what went on with Pete Hegseth today in his confirmation hearing, because I got to tell you, it was very, I think what we expected, right? A lot of our guests that were in the know on this program said it was going to be tough. I believe he's going to get confirmed. He's going to, it's going to be a dust up, but he'll get confirmed. I mean, and that's how it is when Trump nominates you. Just look at Kavanaugh, right? Kavanaugh went through hell, and many others did. Look at the guys that went to jail, like Navarro. That this is par for the course. Giuliani. I mean, there's just a lot of fallout that happens, lamentably, when you're with Donald Trump. You're with the good guys. The bad guys come, and they come hardcore. So Anyway, Pete Hegseth, he held his ground today. I thought he did a remarkable job. Tammy Duckworth was trying to set him up, saying, hey, look, we know that you're a drunk. You do this. I'm sorry, not Tammy Duckworth, Mazie Hirono. And she just kept going after him. And I thought he did a really remarkable job. Listen to this, cut number 9.
I have read multiple reports of your regularly being drunk at work, including by people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
Senator, those
Yes
are
or no?
multiple false anonymous reports peddled by NBC
Do you
News
know that
run directly
drinking on the job
contradictory to
is
the dozens of men and women at
not
Fox News
contemplated
Channel
on it?
who I work with
I'm
who
not
came
hearing
on
the
the
answer to my
record
question.
and said they've
In your
never
opening
seen
statement,
that.
Mr. Hegseth, you commit to holding leaders accountable at all levels. That includes you, of course. And frankly, as secretary, you will be on the job 24/7. You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed, correct?
Absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign as
serving.
Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf
job?
of the men and women I'm serving
I'm not
because it's
hearing-
the most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on.
Okay, I don't like the way you play, so I'm taking my ball and I'm leaving. Listen, this is par for the course with the Democrats. But interesting, right? How she says, if you take this job that's 24/7, do you promise to never drink ever again? Now, I'm not saying that anybody has to drink. What I'm saying is the standard here is the same for every Secretary of Defense, whatever that standard is, right? For most people, you're not allowed to show up to work drunk, right? I think for broadcast people, you're not allowed to drink on the air. I think that's a thing. So I get it. There's rules for work. I think Pete Hegseth said all the right things. And I think the most important thing for all of us to remember is he's going to be held to the same standard that Mark Milley or whatever his name was, General, what was his name? The guy that just resigned. Anybody in the control room? Lloyd Austin. There we go. General Lloyd Austin, who was the last DOD guy. These guys were all held to the same standard, right? This is not a particular standard just for Pete Hegseth, and it should not be a particular standard for him. And I would have reminded her of that. But good for him for being way more of a gentleman than I. As you know, I like to trade barbs every now and again, and you know, I probably would have made fun of her. Probably would have came up with a nickname for her because I think she's pretty ridiculous. But she went on and she went on and she went on. And we'll get into a lot more of that as we go on tonight. I want to get into a lot of things, and I'm having like big ADHD tonight because there's so much to talk about. Honestly, there's a lot. There was a lot with Trump. Trump says he's going to create an external revenue service for the collection of tariffs. I can't wait to get into this. Then we've got, what else do we've got here? We've got Speaker Johnson's ordering the Capitol Hill flags to be flown at full staff for the Trump inauguration. I'm sure a lot of people are upset about this because they're thinking we have to pay homage to President Carter. How dare you, right? In the words of Greta Thunberg. The other side of that coin is we have to pay homage to an incoming president who's alive. I think that's a fair argument. Anyway, lots going on. Jasmine Crockett's into another dust-up, this time with Nancy Mace. Heated argument in the House during a committee hearing. We'll get to that a little bit later. And let's see. There's just a lot here. I can't do it all right here, but we're going to get into it. And again, tonight, a lot of good stuff. So keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation, and there's a report I want you to hear from Ryan Robertson. He's from Straight Arrow News. Check this out.
As President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is calling for Puerto Rico's liberation, drawing alarm from U.S. officials. Puerto Rico's governor, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, is urging swift action, describing Maduro's remarks as a direct threat to U.S. security and sovereignty. In a letter to Mr. Trump, Gonzalez Colon highlighted the strategic importance of Puerto Rico, citing its military installations like Fort Buchanan and the Muniz Air National Guard Base. The governor also says the island's role in combating drug trafficking through U.S. Coast Guard and customs operations is vital. She says Puerto Ricans also consistently reject independence, with a majority voting for statehood in a recent referendum.
That is from the governor of Puerto Rico, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. And I want to get to the bottom of this with somebody who was an official in the administration of government in Puerto Rico. He was also an official here in the United States mainland, Alphonso Aguilar. He's the former chief of the Office of Citizenship, and he's also the current Hispanic Engagement Director with the American Principles Project. Alphonso Aguilar, welcome back, sir.
Rich, how are you? It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Likewise, thank you. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this situation. Of course, you just heard in the report, and I think some of our listeners heard, Nicolas Maduro, the dictator from Venezuela, saying, seeming flippantly saying, that he would invade Puerto Rico to liberate it from the colonization of the United States using the troops of Brazil and the battalions of Peru. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's easy to lead an invasion when you're using the troops from other countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny. Unexpected, obviously, for Maduro. But look, this is a dictator who just stole the elections in Venezuela, who last Friday had himself sworn in a very short 10-minute ceremony. And I think he's trying to take away attention from what's going on in Venezuela. And that's why he's talking about, Puerto Rico and going into Puerto Rico. It's also an opportunity for him to try to attack the United States, saying that somehow the United States is colonizing Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a territory, that is true, and the sovereignty of Puerto Rico is in the Congress of the United States. But as you mentioned, the vast majority of U.S. citizens cherish their U.S. citizenship, want to be part of the U.S., and in the last two plebiscites held, the majority of Puerto Ricans want to be a state. So they don't want to be liberated. They want to be part of the United States permanently. So I think this is just a little strategy to talk about something else instead of Venezuela. And the reality is that Venezuela is getting worldwide attention because of his repressive regime. Since he stole the elections happened back in July of last year. He's imprisoned more than 2,000 people. Recently, I think in the last few weeks, he's imprisoned more than 10 U.S. citizens. So this is really concerning, and I think he is trying to project himself as a sort of hemispheric leader. But nobody wants to be like Maduro's. I don't think any country aspires to be like Maduro's Venezuela. I think it's not only a repressive regime. I mean, economically, it has transformed a huge economy, has just totally destroyed it, and now they're lacking the most basic necessities. It's a travesty what he has done. An oil-rich country like Venezuela is now in really, really bad situation. That's why so many people have left Venezuela and keep leaving the country. They've gone all over Latin America. They're coming also here to the United States.
Well, this is, I guess, Marxism at its finest, right? It breaks everything that it comes in contact with. And I want to ask you a question. I want to infuse a little popular culture here, since you covered the geopolitical aspect so brilliantly. And there's a huge artist, probably the biggest artist in the world, recording artist right now, Bad Bunny. He's put out this new record, and it has all of this traditional bomba y plena and salsa and a lot of great Puerto Rican music. And the message that he keeps driving home to a lot of people, at least on social media, is for Puerto Ricans to stop going to Orlando, Florida, or to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and leaving the Bronx and go back to the island, because they seem to have embraced a term from the old Cold War back in the 1950s, Yankee go home, right? This anti-imperialist, anti-American sentiment where they're protesting, people from the United States investing in Puerto Rico. And I think that it's a good thing to have investment. I also think it's a good thing if people want to go to Puerto Rico, then they should, whomever, whether you're Puerto Rican or not. But I think it's not a good thing to embrace Marxism and feel altruistic about it. Your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right. Look, Bad Bunny, people don't know this because they just listen to his music and they find him cool, whatever. I don't. And many Puerto Ricans, people don't understand that. But a lot of Puerto Ricans don't like Bad Bunny, don't like what the kind of music and lyrics, especially that of his
Definitely
songs.
Edgy.
Well, edgy, some people could call it misogynist and violent. But, I think that his views are not shared by the vast majority of Puerto Ricans. And obviously he's using his platform as a very famous recording artist to push his idea for Puerto Rican independence. But the reality is the majority of people don't want that. Puerto Ricans are leaving the island because of a failed economic model. The Puerto Rican government right now is too big. It's too involved in the economy. The economy is highly regulated. So nothing grows in Puerto Rico, sadly, because of huge government. And Puerto Rico, and that's something that the U.S. cannot solve for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has to do it. The governments have to do it for themselves, right? To really implode the size of government, reinvent government, deregulate totally the economy to attract more investment. And if that were to happen, you would see Puerto Rico growing its economy in a robust way and creating good-paying jobs. But the reality is that because of huge government and a highly regulated economy, the middle class is very small. So you have a lot of substantial income inequality, and so people who want to have opportunities find it very hard in Puerto Rico and decide to leave. They leave to Orlando. They leave to Pennsylvania. They go actually anywhere in the United States where they can find a job. And as U.S. citizens, once they come here, they have access to all sorts of additional benefits. So that's the reality. But for people to remain in Puerto Rico, things have to improve dramatically. But independence would be, imagine Puerto Rico becoming independent. I mean, it would be a disaster for the island, and probably countries like Cuba and others would take advantage of that to push socialism.
Wow. Well, I don't know if I've gotten to that side of the argument yet, but I always appreciate you coming on, brother. And I hope to see you in D.C. for the inauguration. Folks, Alphonso Aguilar, American Principles Project. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
You bet. And folks, we're coming right back. Lots to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Now let's turn to subway safety. To reduce crime and the fear of crime, we've deployed over 1,250 state personnel, including the state police and the National Guard, to support the city and NYPD's efforts on the subway. And I insisted that every single subway car have cameras being used now to solve crimes. It's working. We've also strengthened the laws against assaulting commuters and MTA workers. And we've streamlined the coordination between our DAs and law enforcement to ensure that when crimes are committed, they're swiftly punished. We've put barriers.
Right. I don't think anybody is stopping crime and preventing it from happening, especially not Kathy Hochul. Welcome back, America. It's Rich Valdez, keeping you company all night long. And I want to get to the bottom of this because, you know, like I was telling you earlier, I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and I saw this video from the New York Post, or an article in the New York Post. And it was about, again, a guy who was sleeping on the train. These guys started bothering him. He pulled out a knife. He stabbed them because they tried to attack him. And he left those guys bloodied. And I thought to myself, this is like Bernard Goetz 2.0, right? The guy who shot the guys who tried to accost him on the train back in the 80s. And that happened when I was a kid. But I have to say, things are getting rough in New York City. And I said, you know what, let me call. There's two people I wanted to call. I wanted to call one guy who's a mover and a shaker, John Catsimidis, and my buddy Curtis Sliwa, who's going to be running for mayor. And we've got John Catsimidis, the owner of WABC Radio, the owner of Gristedes. He owns an energy company. I mean, this guy's been around the block, and he's a true blue New Yorker. John, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, we all love New York, and we got to make New York make a comeback. I mean, we can't keep going like this, and I guess the governor has to decide, along with the mayor, and I think the mayor is convinced now that there's a new sheriff in the country, and his name is Donald Trump, and he's not going to take any crap from anybody. I mean, he loves New York, and he wants to make sure New York is safe for everybody, and I think he's committed.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we've heard an about face or seen an about face from Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. I don't think we've seen that yet from Kathy Hochul. What do you think it's going to take?
Well, she had the state of the state message today, and last week she was saying that she's going to do this new climate initiative, and I forgot the name of it because nobody really cared. But it was going to raise the price of gasoline within 2 years up 22 cents, and it was going to raise the price of heating oil. And what they were trying to do is make oil, which is our main energy thing right now, the enemy of the people. And I think a lot of people spoke out. They yelled, they screamed. I screamed on WABC. I screamed on Fox Business. And what I said is enough is enough. You can't do it. And I said to the governor, there's a new sheriff in town. And Donald Trump loves New York, and he doesn't want New York to go further downhill. And I think you should cooperate with Donald Trump. There is no more Joe Biden. There is no more Kamala Harris. It's over.
Absolutely. And we need to put an end to the wokeism with this new administration, and I know that's going to happen. Folks, we're on with John Catsimidis. He's president and CEO of the Red Apple Group, which has many different holdings, real estate holdings, supermarket holdings, media holdings, and he's the co-host of Katz and Cosby on WABC Radio in New York City, where I started my radio career back in 2018. And both Katz and Cosby.
And you might be back someday. You never know.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I love New York. And
yeah,
the idea behind this, I think, is you have to put enough pressure. And me, I'm talking you, right? You and everybody that's got a big voice in New York, all of us, to get Hochul to understand that her reelection isn't guaranteed if she goes against the people. And I think the election of Donald Trump sends that's the biggest message. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree that you got to remember the inner city hit new highs of people voting for Trump and people voting for GOP because they were finally and upstate New York. It's just about all red, except for parts of Buffalo and but it's
And that's her. That's where she
people-
comes from.
Yes, and people are just getting angry, and they're saying enough is enough. We're paying a lot of taxes, and aren't we entitled to a better quality of life? And I'll tell you, Rich, the other thing I tell all the politicians in Albany, all the politicians in all the blue states, that these bail laws, in New York City, there's 8.5 million people. There's 3,300 repeat criminals, drug addicts, murderers, repeat criminals. Shouldn't the politicians take care of the 8.5 million New Yorkers than to be loyal to the 3,300 criminals? I mean, anytime you have 8.5 million people in the world, in a city, there's got to be a few, I guess, some nut jobs, some real criminals. So they belong either in a asylum and they need drugs to take care of them, or they belong in a prison. But 3,300 out of 8.5 million, that's very little. Let's take care of the
very little, but still too many.
Let's take care of our citizens.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. C, hang on. We're going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back. Folks, we're coming right back with John Catsimidis, president of the Red Apple Group, host of Katz and Cosby, former candidate for mayor of New York City, and all-around good guy. CEO of United Refining. I left that one out, and I want to talk about that specifically. What does the future of American energy look like in the Trump 47 administration? What will El Trompito do to maximize energy in the United States? We're going to talk about that when we come back with John Catsimidis.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you so much for having me back on, Rich. I always enjoy talking to you.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Biden's actions yesterday on offshore drilling, banning offshore drilling, will not stand. I will reverse it immediately. It'll be done immediately. And we will drill, baby, drill. And we're going to be drilling in a lot of other locations. And the energy costs are going to come way down. They'll be brought down to a very low level, and that's going to bring everything else down. That's what caused it to go up, along with the ridiculous spending on the Green New scam. All this money, trillions of dollars. It's like throwing it right out the window, what they're doing. And they're trying to spend so much now. They're just taking money and giving it to anybody that wants it for any project at all, if it's certified under the Green New scam. And they don't work, and it's too expensive. And, they told me that we're going to do everything possible to make this transition to the new administration very smooth. It's not smooth because they're doing that. They're playing with the courts, as you know. They've been playing with the courts for 4 years, probably got me more votes because I got the highest number of votes ever gotten by a Republican, by far, actually, by a lot.
By far, by a lot. Love this guy. Folks, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with John Catsimidis, president of Red Apple Group, CEO of United Refining Company. And John, Mr. C, I want to ask you, this notion that if we drill more and we sell more liquid natural gas, it's going to bring prices down and we're going to see a roaring economy. We saw this to be true in the 4 years that Trump was president, up till about COVID time. Is there any reason why we shouldn't think that that's going to happen again?
It's the law of supply and demand. Right now, the United States is drilling or making available 13.2, 13.3 million barrels a day. And Alberta, Canada, who went down to, the premier there went down to see President Trump in Mar-a-Lago last week. She is drilling I believe, 5.3 million barrels a day. So that's over almost 18 million. And she has told me in an interview that I did with her that she could double it from 5.3 to 10. So
Wow.
North America could be self-sufficient, I would say, over the next year or so. Alaska, I had Senator Dan, oh, Jesus Christ, Dan Sullivan, good guy. Our pipeline that goes from Alaska down to the 48 states is capable of carrying 2 million barrels a day. Right now, it's only carrying 500,000. Why are we giving the business to foreign countries when we have the product ourselves? And what's going to happen long term? Gasoline is not going away, but over the next 10 years, over the next 20 years, over the next 30 years, we're going to be converting to what they call SMRs, small modular reactors, where you take the nuclear reactors from our submarines and convert them for land use. And those nuclear submarines have been running for 60 years, and it's safe. So we're going to go over a conversion factor versus what some of the Europeans were doing, panicking and say, oh, my God, the world's going to come to an end. We're using gasoline. We should use electric cars. Well, electric cars are not going to do it. It doesn't work. You want to go to church on Sundays? You can go buy an electric car and go to church on Sundays. But right now, nothing else is going to substitute gasoline. And eventually, over the next 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to be converting to small nuclear reactors or small modular reactors. And that's where energy is going. You're not going to get any energy, enough energy, out of a few solar cells and a few windmills to power the country. I mean, people that think like that, you better think it out. It's going to take real power to do it.
Yeah, listen, Mr. C, I totally agree with you there. Folks, we're on with John Catsimidis, and if you don't remember the interview we did with his last book that came out, Mr. C came here as an immigrant from Greece and made his way working in a supermarket, bought the supermarket, bought a 7-Eleven, bought a gas station, then bought a private jet, and then said, I'm going to rent this thing out and start a company. It became NetJets, made more money, bought a refinery, made billions of dollars, and then decided to buy a radio station. Not a bad story. So when we talk about energy, he knows about this stuff because he owns a refinery. And that was really why I wanted to get your take on this, because for the last 4 years, I think so many people have been scratching their heads wondering, why did Biden turn his back on this spigot of cash, of natural resources, of self-sufficiency? What do you think?
And the other thing that's going to happen, as the price of oil goes down, the price of food is going to go down, because food manufacturing and food delivery to your local supermarket,
for sure.
That's your big cost. So as oil goes down and the price of gasoline goes down, the price of diesel goes down, the price of food goes down. If the price of food goes down and gasoline goes down, guess what? Inflation goes away and interest rates come down. And that gives the excuse to the Fed to lower interest rates. It's so simple, yet all these people make it so complicated.
How long? 6 months, 7 months, 8 months? What do you think?
I would say anywhere, when people know we're going in the right direction, I would say you're going to see an immediate number of 90 days. The other thing, the Suez Canal, the Red Sea. Why is Biden more loyal to Iran and allowing them to keep the Red Sea and the Suez Canal closed? Because if it was open, I would say crude oil would go down $10 a barrel.
Yeah, well, I know the answer to that. I know you speak Greek, you don't speak Spanish, but the term for that is because Biden is a pendejo, and he just makes very, very bad decisions. That's the bottom line. He loves Iran.
I hope it's bad decisions and it's not treason.
You and me both. I try to give the benefit of the doubt. Now,
yes,
before we wrap, I want to sneak attack you with a question, because everybody's talking about somebody's buying TikTok. Musk is buying TikTok. The other guy's buying TikTok. I've heard you're buying TikTok. Tell everybody in America that's listening right now, are you buying TikTok?
Am I buying TikTok? No, I'm not buying. I'll let Elon Musk do it. I mean, he makes me look like a poor billionaire.
I love it. Mr. C, let everybody know where they go to find you, to listen to your programs, and to learn more about you.
Well, we're on WABC, and we work closely with Cumulus, which you work for. And
Sure.
We're on every day at 5 o'clock, between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And on your iPhone, or you can get it on at 77 WABC, on your computer, 77 WABC radio.com or WABCradio.com. And we're in 177 countries and 50 states on the internet. And in New York, we're on 770 WABC.
Outstanding. Folks, check them out live at 5 o'clock if you're in New York, or check them out on the app or the website. John Catsimidis, sir, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I appreciate you taking the time to break it down for us.
Well, thank you for getting the message out and letting the people know the truth, because the only way we can make changes in our city, our state, our country is by people knowing what the truth is.
Amen to that. Godspeed, sir. And folks, we come back. Your calls and more, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
So you're saying, as a result of the Green New Deal, as a result of the climate change agenda of the Democrats and the Biden administration and the Gavin Newsom administration, they stopped logging. They stopped the timber industry from coming down, cutting trees, logging. They stopped the farmers from allowing the animals to graze, and they stopped storing water because of the climate change agenda?
Yeah, this radical idea. I mean, this green new economy is really a red one. It's one that brings on death and devastation.
Maria Bartiromo and Devin Nunes talking about the Green New Deal, the wildfires, and so much more. I want to go to your calls. Let's go to Ray, Galesburg, WGIL, Illinois. Go for it, Ray.
Hey, Rich. I just wanted to talk to you about this fire problem and this water problem that they're talking about.
Yeah, go for it quickly. The music's about to play.
If you can't hear me, it's because
I hear you. I just want you to go quickly.
My Parkinson's. Well, I wanted to say that I don't hear what their problem, how the solution in the future is going to be. They should be working on that now too. Be ready. What do
you think about the wildfires?
Well, the wildfires are going to be there. They've always been there, but this got a hand. But this is a water system they're using.
We're out of time there, brother. Sorry. I thought you had a recommendation for how to put them out. We had a minute and a half, and it wasn't enough. But I appreciate the call, brother. God bless you, Ray. Shout out to everybody on WGIL. And, folks, if this is the end of the road for you, then take care, good night, and God bless you, America. Hasta la próxima. If you're sticking around, there's more to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. We're live, we're national, and our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, we're taking your calls live on the air. Feel free to give me a call. Now, I want to talk about a few things again. Some of the big things that happened today. Pete Hegseth got into a showdown with members of the United States Senate that were opposing his nomination, giving him a hard time. But if you look at the video, he's there. He's got half a smile on his face. He's calm. He's cool. He's collected. They tried to attack him a million different ways, and he stuck to his ground. I got a clip of his opening statement, and I want you to listen to this.
We undertook this responsibility with an obligation to the troops to do right by them for our warfighters. And what became very evident to us from the beginning, there was a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated in the media against us. That was clear from moment one. And what we knew is that it wasn't about me. Most of it was about President Donald Trump, who's had to endure the very same thing for much longer amounts of time. And he endured it in incredibly strong ways. So we, in some ways, knew it was coming. We didn't understand the depth of the dishonesty that would come with it.
And he was incredibly clear about his position on things, including politics. When he was asked about politics, and they asked him about whether politics informed his position, he told, I think it was Senator Hirono, that politics has nothing to do with the battlefield.
As far as politics, Senator, it has been the joy of my life to lead men and women in military outfits. When you're in combat or in training, there's a lot of conversations that happen. And you start to realize that a lot of people you're serving with share your political ideals or they don't. You find out there's Republicans, there's Democrats, there's libertarians, there's independents, there's vegetarians, everything in between. None of that matters. It never mattered in how I led men and women, how I interacted with them, what missions we undertook. Politics has nothing to do with the battlefield, which is why President Trump has asked me to say, let's make sure all of that comes out. This is about warfighting capability, setting standards high, and making sure we give our boys, our men and women, everything they need to be successful on the battlefield. So politics can play no part in that, and I look forward to infusing that, as we always have inside our units.
Again, that is Pete Hegseth. And that's not the only thing that's going on today. There's a few things that we've got today because, of course, there is continued wind gusts that are not helping things in California with the wildfires. The left is freaking out that they might cancel the Oscars and a whole lot of other stuff that's going on. Nicolas Maduro was called out by the governor of Puerto Rico saying, the United States shouldn't stand for this, and her issuing a staunch warning. We had a good conversation with Alphonso Aguilar a little earlier, and it ended too quickly. I wanted to stay on with him a little bit longer because he made a great argument. And I agree with him that it would be disastrous for Puerto Rico to be liberated from the United States. In fact, I think it should go the other way. I think Puerto Rico needs to become a state. I am not convinced on the argument that they should become independent, their own country. First thing I would say is, how do you do that when you don't have your own currency? There's a lot of things that they don't have, right? And I say this as someone, my parents were both born on the island of Puerto Rico, and I love Puerto Rico. I was in Puerto Rico twice last year. I absolutely love it, and I think it's best suited to, rather than be a affiliated, associated free state, Commonwealth, as it's currently listed, it would benefit greatly from being a state. So I'll probably get into that a little bit more later. I realize a lot of people have followed the lead of AOC and Mitch McConnell, including some of McConnell's colleagues in the United States Senate. But I think it's ill-advised. And I think somebody who really gets it is United States Senator Marco Rubio, who Trump has tapped to become Secretary of State. And I'm glad he understands things better than others, because you need to have that type of keen understanding of situations. You have to have a hands-on experience with communism, as he did with his family, leaving Cuba. And I think at that point, you can see the minute that something like Cuba, when, this was the same thing Fidel Castro talked about. And I played that clip of Castro yesterday. When they talk about social justice, they talk about independence, liberation from the imperialists. It sounds nice. It sounds flowery. But ultimately, what they're really talking about is going into a state-run scenario. They're talking about socialism. They're talking about communism. This isn't what we need. It's not what anybody needs, let alone Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a military installation on the island of Culebra or Vieques, and these are all United States military installations. What would the United States military be without Puerto Ricans? This is a good question. I'll let you do your own homework on that. There have been Puerto Ricans serving in every single major war. Isn't it interesting? And you're like, yeah, Puerto Rico's not that old. Yep. Hispanics overall have served in every major war, dating back to the George Washington era, believe it or not. It's actually an article I read on the U.S. Army website. But anyway, my point here, Puerto Rico would be better served becoming a state. That's my position. And I'm not about to write an op-ed and submit it to the Washington Times just yet. I might, but not yet. We'll continue to talk about it and have interesting conversations. And I also want to jump back into this Hegseth stuff, because I think he stood his ground. He's a good guy. I got to know him a little bit at a CPAC a couple of years back, and over the years, through interviews and stuff like that. And I can tell you, he's a good guy. And I only know who he was because he was nice to my children. They were, they were younger. They were both maybe one was a teenager and the other one was 11, about to turn 12. And I remember the little one they both told me, they were like, I was like, oh, everything okay at the pool? Because, they're little girls and they were at a pool, and I asked questions. I was like, everything all right? Nobody bothered you? And they were like, no, everything was fine. They were like, actually, there was a really nice man. He was there with his wife, and he had a little girl, and we were playing with the little girl, who was, considerably younger, his daughter. And my older daughter said, yeah, he had a really cool We the People tattoo. And my younger daughter goes, yeah, and a machine gun like Uncle Louis. And I thought that was funny. And I was like, I wonder who has that. And then later on, I saw him at the pool. I was like, oh, my gosh, my kids were talking about you. Anyway, we had a brief conversation. It was very nice. Anyway, he's a good guy, and he's a family man, and I think he's the right man for the job. Just I think he's a man of integrity, and that's what Washington needs more than anything. So we're going to have a discussion on that. We're going to talk about what is the geopolitical impact of getting into a tussle, if you will, with certain things that used to be part of the United States and may not be anymore, right? I.e. the Panama Canal or Greenland. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to speak with a general who might, and he's coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one. Let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
I'll bet you would.
No, I bet it would. She got burned. That's Senator Elizabeth Warren trying to get one up on Pete Hegseth, and he scored. He dunked on her. He got a chuckle out of the whole room. It was really, really good, I thought. Good for the cameras, good for everything. And I want to bring in a general to have a conversation on this and on some geopolitical stuff as well. General John Teichert. He's retired from the United States Air Force, and he's also retired Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs. General Teichert, welcome back, sir.
Rich, it's awesome to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. And I want to get your reaction to an exchange between two veterans, Major Pete Hegseth, United States Army National Guard, and Tammy Duckworth, United States Senator who has no legs due to her service. Listen to this.
Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no? Did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Yes or no?
What
are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes
part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our war fighters.
Again, that is retired Lieutenant Colonel U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth in a heated exchange with retired Major Pete Hegseth, nominee for DOD Secretary. General Teichert, I want to get the play-by-play from you. What do you think about that?
Rich, I think that, of course, today we heard and saw a whole lot of grandstanding. We also saw Republicans starting to consolidate support behind Pete Hegseth. But I think with the American public, as they look on and think about the last 4 years or reflecting on, is that we had a four-star general as the Secretary of Defense for the last 4 years. We were promised the adults in the room and that America would be back. And then we saw America's standing in the world start to erode. And Americans want a military that is constitutionally grounded, mission-focused, and merit-based. We haven't seen that with the adults in the room for the last 4 years. And I think there's a breath of fresh air and an excitement amongst the force that there's a time to snap back to our fundamental responsibility as a DOD.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I'm just reading the room. I'm reading the tea leaves. When I see 500 Navy SEAL veterans that are coming to support Hegseth's nomination, I think this is a good sign of support. Do you feel like there's going to be obviously a challenge to get him confirmed, but he gets confirmed, and then do you think it's smooth sailing after that, or do you think that they continue to try and stop him every step of the way?
Rich, I think that a fair and robust confirmation process is not something to be feared. I think it's the Senate fulfilling their constitutional duty. And then if you have a fair and robust confirmation process, then once the confirmation process is complete and the nominee is confirmed, then it gives them a level of strength and credibility going forward that allows all of the pettiness in a confirmation hearing to go away and enables them the power and the credibility to fulfill their responsibility under the Constitution.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, after all, these are politicians. It is Washington. You're going to get some grandstanding along with what they have to do, and this is what they do. And it's not new. I think a little more heated than usual today, but I get it. Now, I
think the American people are looking for results, Rich. I think they're looking for results from their DOD, the credibility of a United States that is strong in both capability and will. And they're desperate to see that because we haven't seen it in the last 4 years. And again, I think that the members of the military and the American public are thirsting for the strength we've been lacking for 4 years.
Oh, I agree. And I think to your point that they want to see accountability. They want to see an improvement. You also made the comment that we had a four-star general in Lloyd Austin. and being very generous, and that's very gentlemanly of you. But I thought he was an absolute disaster. I mean, really disastrous. I look at what happened in Afghanistan, disastrous. What's happening with with all of the war theaters that we have, it seems like he was not in anybody's ear unless Biden was that adamant of being that horrible at what he does. But I want you to, if you can, just for a second, listen to this exchange between Senator Jack Reed and Pete Hegseth. Cut 3. Go ahead.
You've written publicly that DI policy is a distraction and have military personnel walking on eggshells. Do you believe that emails like that are essentially threatening both a serving officer and a spouse and claiming that they'll lose their pension will have a distraction and detract from the lethality?
Senator, you mentioned the 40s and 50s, and you're precisely right. The military was a forerunner in courageous racial integration in ways no other institutions were willing to do. I served with men and women of all backgrounds because of the courage of people decades and decades ago. Incredibly important. However, the DEI policies of today are not the same as what happened back then. They're dividing troops inside formations, causing commanders to walk on eggshells, not putting meritocracy first. That's the indictment that's made by those serving right now.
General John Teichert, do you agree with this statement? And do you think DEI and wokeism, for lack of better words, is really as big of a problem as it's perceived to be?
Rich, we have seen the DOD massively distracted for the last 4 years. And that distraction is causing major problems in recruiting and retention. People join the military because they want to be mission focused. They want the construct to be merit based. And the fact that so much of the energy, especially in the building, in the Pentagon, has been focused on social engineering instead of the clear and present threats that are surrounding us in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, in our hemisphere, and the Western Pacific, that it will be a breath of fresh air to get back to a mission focus that doesn't get distracted by all of these things that we've seen distracting the force in DEI and other elements for the last 4 years.
Yeah, makes sense. Folks, I want to remind you we're on with General John Teichert. He is a retired Air Force general and Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs. And straight ahead, I want to get his thoughts, his take, his opinion on the acquisition of Greenland, as well as taking back the Panama Canal. Plus, I want to get your calls right after that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Of course, if you missed any part of the conversations we've had tonight, you can always check them out at richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. And if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show and they're missing the coveted third hour of the program, make sure you talk to that station's program director and tell them, hey, you got to carry the third hour of this guy's show. Anyway, we're going to continue our conversation straight ahead with General John Teichert and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Don Jr. and some of your team just got back from Greenland. What's the price tag?
Well, maybe no price tag. Look, we're going to have to see what happens because Denmark, we need this for national security. We need Greenland very badly. You look at the Russian ships, the China ships, they're all over the place. They're surrounding. Now, they have for a long time. That's a lane. But we need that for national security. So I don't know that Denmark has any right, title, and interest, and we're going to find that. But I can tell you, you saw the clips that were released. The people of Greenland would love to become a state of the United States of America. We were greeted with tremendous love and affection and respect. The people would like to be a part of the United States. Now, Denmark maybe doesn't like it, but then we can't be too happy with Denmark, and maybe things have to happen with respect to Denmark having to do with tariffs, because they have to do this, I think, for the free world.
They have to do it for the free world, says El Trumpito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, soon to be the 47th president. We're 6 days away from that. And I want to get some reaction to this, both this and the Panama Canal, from General John Teichert. He's a United States Air Force general. He retired as Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs. And General, when you hear about this, some people are saying that Trump is being a modern-day dictator, ruler. He's trying to amass new land grabbing. To me, it sounds legitimate. It sounds like somebody who's thinking of a legacy and somebody who's really thinking of not just maintaining what's going on, but really thinking 10, 20, 30 years into the future. What say you?
Rich, something that he said is important for us to realize, and that is his thought that this is critical to national security. And we as the United States spend a lot of time talking about national security in places that are far away from North America, but Greenland is in our hemisphere, that it is the gateway to North America from Europe and from Russia. And an exercise that I encourage every American to do is take a look at a globe and look at it from the perspective of the North Pole. And you'll notice four things. Number one, you'll notice that Greenland is the largest geographic feature in that area. Number two, you'll see a huge trade route across the Atlantic Ocean that's a shortcut between east and west. Number three, you'll see that Russia is closer to North America across the Arctic Ocean than we think of when we look at the Atlantic Ocean. And then number four, Greenland is the barrier that protects us directly from Russia to the eastern United States. And so when President Trump says that this is important for national security, it is him helping us to refocus our national security efforts on our homeland security, which is our number one priority. And while people may not like the words that he uses, it is getting us talking about a vital national security element that otherwise has gone untalked about for the last several years.
Now, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think that the left and critics of Trump are going to say, well, why now? And, why did Eisenhower fail? Why did others before you fail in getting this? Is this just rhetoric? What are your thoughts regarding that?
I don't know whether it's just rhetoric or not, but we need two things out of Greenland. We need, number one, that it is firmly in the control of Allied forces because of its dominance in the region. That means that whoever properly controls Greenland is in control of the sea, undersea, the air, and the land. And there's also a wealth of natural resources there throughout the Arctic, frankly, but Greenland is the linchpin. And I think that we have spent a lot of resources from America supporting European security, but NATO should also, as a fair share, be focused on supporting North American security, and Greenland is a linchpin for that. And it's great that we're talking about it and focusing on it now because it's been neglected for far too long.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to pivot to the Panama Canal because Trump gave a press conference at Mar-a-Lago not that long ago, and he brought up the Panama Canal, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. And there's a clip that I want to play for you real quick just so you could hear the actual comments. Listen to this, General.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country.
Perfect place to pause that, because I agree that any body of water that, and you just made this case, General, right? You said whoever's there has to be an allied force because they control the air, the sea, and the land, which ultimately means my safety, right? The fact that I can be an arrogant American relies on these allies that I don't think people are going to come and bomb us here, even though I think modern warfare isn't as much bombing as it used to be. But it makes sense to me. Is there something I'm missing?
I think that it's important to consider that these choke points, like the Panama Canal, are vital to American well-being. We see how the Houthis have choked off the Red Sea, and maybe that seems nebulous in its impact to America, but just that shutdown of that body of water has tripled the cost of shipping a crate from Asia to the east coast of the United States. That means a large part of inflationary pressures on the American population is because America can't control or maintain security of the Red Sea. The Panama Canal is orders of magnitude more vital to the economic and national security well-being for the United States than the Red Sea. And if we lose control or lose sovereignty of our ability to use that choke point, then it has drastic daily impact on the average American.
Yeah, that's really well put. Excellent geopolitical analysis, General. Now, I want you to let everybody that's listening know how they find you, how they keep up to speed with the amazing work that you're doing.
Rich, I appreciate that. Go to johnteichert.com, Teichert. You can keep track of everything I'm doing. I've recently published 2 books. The first one is Boom, Leadership That Breaks Barriers, Challenges Convention, and Ignites Innovation. The second one is a 90-day Christian devotional entitled Prayers for a Nation, and how to pray for our country during this time of transition. And I would encourage all of your listeners to check me out on my website and check out those 2 books about leadership and about praying for our great country.
All right, amigos, you heard the General. That's a direct order. Go to johnteichert.com, Teichert, johnteichert.com. General John Teichert, retired from the U.S. Air Force, Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs. I really appreciate you being here tonight. Godspeed to you, sir.
Rich, I've loved it as always. Have me back anytime, please.
Will do. Absolutely. I appreciate it. And amigos, coming right back, your phone calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So mañana, I think mañana or sometime this week, coming up soon, Marco Rubio is going to be facing off with senators in his confirmation hearing, likely taking the globalists to task. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, straight ahead, we're going to talk about the dust-up between Congresswoman Nancy Mace and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. But first, I want to go to your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Lance, Kalispell, Montana, KOFI. Go for it.
Good evening, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I just want to address the issue of the number of executive orders that President Trump is going to have to issue within his first 100 days, and how I feel that the lamestream media is going to portray or try and create the narrative that he is a dictator by creating all these orders, but when in reality 66% of them are going to be undoing the failure of the past administration. And how would you perceive that, sir?
Well, I think your analysis is spot on. The reality of this stuff is this is what they did last time, right? I think if you will recall when 2017 rolled around, he came in and he came in hardcore, just like Biden did. But Biden, I think, came in more hardcore than he did. And they didn't criticize Biden, but they did criticize him for everything he did. So, yeah, of course, they're going to say he's trying to rule by executive fiat and that he's a dictator and he's this and he's that. But I think we're going to hear a little bit less of it because it's one thing if, debating oftentimes is not about being right or wrong. It's about winning. And the way you win is by persuading the audience. If you know that your audience is favorable to the other guy, then you know that your argument has to be tailored in a way that's not going to beat him up, but, dust him up, right? So back then, they thought, oh, everybody hates Trump as much as we do, so we could do whatever we want. But now, I think they realize these people that we're trying to convince, these people voted for him. And we can't even say that it was this small majority of white supremacist crazy people, but it was black people, black men, Puerto Rican men, Hispanics of all stripes. And this, I think, was a shocking and alarming moment for many on the left, especially the left within the media, not so much the left within academia. And honestly, some of the left inside of our government, where they were like, man, didn't see it coming because they didn't realize how far to the left they were, but they're realizing it. I think one of the most popular examples of that is Van Jones, right? He keeps talking about it, saying, even another one, Charlemagne the God, right? Radio host out of New York. These guys are out there saying, look, we got our butts handed to us. We got beat fair and square. He was never really on the left, but sportscaster Stephen A. Smith, who's been on this program, he's out there every day saying, look, this stuff looks more and more like a setup every day, whichever case, right? Whether it's the Trump cases, January 6th, you name it. You put all that together, and it creates a media that can't really take the shots that they used to take because they risk cutting off their own nose to spite their face. So they're going to have to be a little bit friendlier towards El Trompito, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean he's going to get a pass. I think that means they're just going to pick and choose the mud they sling at him, right? They're going to ask those kind of sharp questions with things like Greenland and this and that, thinking, it's not serious. But in the back of their mind, they're like, let me remember that Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and others in the media said Donald Trump will never be president. All right, he's proven them wrong, not once, but twice. And I would venture to say even a third time. So clearly, I think that they're going to have to be a little bit more measured, Lance. All right. I think we lost Lance. Oh, there he is. There we go. Thank you, Lance. I appreciate you, brother. Anyway, folks, I got to take a quick pause right here, but we're going to come right back to the rest of your calls. I see we got calls from Florida coming in and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, folks, open phones across America. We get to your calls in the last couple of segments of every hour. Instead of doing a whole hour at the end of the show, we're doing it same thing, right? But the end of every hour, which I like more because you give more people an opportunity. And we've got calls from Ventura, California, Charleston, South Carolina, Tampa, Florida, Eduardo, streaming richvaldez.com. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, good evening. Another role that Panama Canal is going to be important is if we help in the removal of Mr. Maduro, because that's going to help with the immigration coming up north. So I think that's something I'm hoping for in this term for President Trump.
Yeah, I would doubt that that's going to happen because Trump is very anti-intervention type of thing. Again, if I were president, I probably would. I tell you, if I were president, I'm the worst guy for you. If anybody who doesn't want to go to war, don't vote for me. I would come in and I'd say, hey, I thought the communism on Cuba was going to end when Castro died. He's been dead for like 4 years or something like that. I would immediately go in and bust that up. Why? Because that's me. And I think Trump is not that guy, and fairly so, right? I think I'm just a little heavy-handed, but and I hate communists. But I agree with you. I would love to see that regime come to an end. I would love to see Maduro's regime come to an end. There's a lot of regimes that I would like to see come to an end. And I think Trump is able to probably share a lot of that sentiment, but he doesn't want to do it through military might. He wants to do it economically and through the free market, which you can't do anything but love and praise that, right? I think that's fantastic. You build the military so that it's strong and that you never have to use it. And then use just common sense business solutions to get to the outcome that you want. But I agree. We need to support something like that. Maybe not militarily, but definitely indeed with tariffs and whatnot. And that, of course, will alleviate things with, once we have control of the Panama Canal, should we get it. Eduardo, Tampa, Florida. Thank you, sir. Let us continue. Archie, Ventura, California, KVTA in the building. Archie, go right ahead. How are you?
I'm great, Rich. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure. I just want to know, are you outside of LA County where the fires are? Are you close to the fires?
I'm in Ventura County and city of Ventura, and it's right across the Santa Clara River from Oxnard, where they had some fires last night, and I guess maybe they flared up again.
I'm glad you're okay. Tell me what's going on. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to talk to you about the entrapment that went on January 6th in D.C. I think that it was definitely entrapment. I'm not a young man. I was in college in the San Fernando Valley when the Kent State riots occurred, and I know how they operate. They had guys on campus. They were trying to get something started. This was a community college, and they were saying there was one guy there that was the director, and he was directing this, and he was trying to get this thing boiling. And he says, well, I don't think it's going to work with this crowd. We had a lot of veterans, some of them returned from Vietnam, and we were trying to keep the lid on. And we did for a long, long time. But he said, well, you can try it anyway. And so all of his apparatchiks spread out around the periphery of the crowd, and they're yelling, all their insane curses.
Trying to rile up the crowd and make it worse than it is. And ultimately, 4 people died, which is horrible. And listen, I agree with the point you're making. I really do. I think I've seen enough video that's been released to at least leave me with a reasonable doubt that there was absolutely involvement by some of the police. There was absolutely involvement by people posing as Trump supporters. When you have the director of the FBI saying, oh, they're not FBI, it makes me believe they're FBI. And then they admit they had 26 informants in the crowd. I can't help but think this whole thing was orchestrated one way or the other. Archie, shout out to you guys and KVTA in Ventura. And folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, Here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of our program. Excuse me, we're live, we're national. Happy Tuesday to you. And here's the phone number if you want to join me, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get into a bunch of stuff tonight. We've been having some really interesting conversations. Of course, we had some discussion about Pete Hegseth in his nomination. We just had a great conversation with General Teichert, who joined us, former Undersecretary of the Air Force. And the topics of conversation today on Capitol Hill were just all over the place. A lot of stuff focused on Hegseth, a lot of attacks. Mazie Hirono asking him if he was drunk at Fox News. Can you believe it? The nerve. You had Tammy Duckworth getting into a big dust-up with him as well. And these things continue, right? There's a lot more. He continued with Senator Mazie Hirono, where she was asking him if he would shoot protesters. You tell me, which, and listen to this.
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
events. Would you carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy a statue.
That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg.
You got to love this, right? The back and forth here. Absolute craziness. Honestly, it is. And not crazy that they have this back and forth. What's crazy is how warped and how different we view things. While I appreciate that so much about America, I do. I would hate to live in groupthink. A lot of people do. A lot of people say, I'm moving to a place where everybody... I don't want to live where everybody thinks like me. I enjoy the back and forth for whatever reason. I think you got cold, you got hot. You got up, you got down. I think you need these things. It creates balance. I really do. So, yeah, I am saying a world without the left? Oh, my gosh. What would we do? Who would we make fun of? Right? What would we get up and fight about every day and fight for? But I understand how people get exhausted by that. I kind of get invigorated by it. But my point here is it does still amaze me that there are people here. Just think of this. This is a United States Senator. She's legitimately asking this man, who's going to be the Secretary of what? Defense. And he's explaining that he was there with a riot shield in his hand on behalf of the United States of America. He was there serving in the National Guard. That he saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence to set fire to a church across the street from the White House. I would do whatever is necessary and legal, right? I mean, I think that's anybody in that capacity. She's putting him in a very difficult spot, but that's all right. That's her job to put a difficult spot. And I think he did an excellent job trying to expose the fact that she's not only being hyperbolic here, but being very political, if you will. I don't think she was really looking for a genuine answer. She was looking to try and shout him down. And again, I get it. I get the game. What amazes me is that her hate for Trump and her view of the world is so warped. And that really does still get to me. I realize there's people like Joe Biden. I don't believe Joe Biden hates Donald Trump. Let me see. Chuck Schumer. I don't believe Chuck Schumer hates Donald Trump. But there are people. Kamala Harris. I believe Kamala Harris hates Donald Trump. I think she hates Joe Biden, too. I think that there are some people that the closer they are to the left, right, to left-wing policies, left-wing politics, Marxism, that type of philosophy, the more hate-filled they are. And I know I might be going on a limb saying this, because you might want to take that the other way and say, well, if the reverse is true, then maybe you're saying that the closer people are to policies that are further to the right, the more love-filled they are. And I guess some people might make that argument. I'm not saying that the left has an exclusive on evil. I think you get evil wherever evil exists, all over the place. But I am saying that it's still remarkable to me that something so simple, it's got to be so difficult, right? I expect it, but I guess in this case, I'm both disappointed and surprised. I would have thought it would not have been. I can see contention, but this is not contention for the sake of having a good, robust debate. This is contention for the sake of, I can't stand you people, right? You people being MAGA. And that's terrible, in my opinion. That's terrible. Anyway, I promised you earlier a clip between Jasmine Crockett getting into it with Nancy Mace. And I thought this was pretty interesting. Listen to this one. Check this out.
I don't even know how we got there, because I tried to make it clear how many civil rights, it doesn't just boil down to one conversation, but I can see that somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, 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 so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do
not.
not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I am 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I
will.
am reclaiming my time.
You will not do that. I
Order.
am not a
Chairman,
child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order.
Oh, boy. She said, if you want to take it outside, we could take it outside. Oh, man, I tell you. You got to love that. You got to love this stuff. And I got to tell you, this stuff is real. This is not fake. This Jerry Springer that you're seeing in Congress, we saw it last time between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crockett. She said something about her lashes, and the whole thing was just a big thing. I got to tell you, this is, I would say, entertaining, but all right, it is. It's entertaining. That was very entertaining for me. But I want to, I guess the preface that I want to make here is there are going to be some people that say this is indignant. This is beneath us. We are above this, and blah, 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 blah. And I think part of the problem that we have today in this life is the pomp and circumstance, this holier than thou self-righteousness that I understand a little bit of, decorum. Sure, I get that. I wouldn't want my kids going to Congress and saying that, let's take this outside. But at the same time, not over being called a child. When she was really just saying, child, she's not really calling you a child. But nonetheless, but I'd still want them to keep that. There's a modern day philosopher I'm a big fan of. His name is Jordan Peterson, Canadian professor, former professor emeritus. There's a clip that's very viral on Instagram or all the social media where he says, you've got the most important thing a man has to do is have the ability to be dangerous, or the capability to be dangerous. So you don't have to be dangerous, but you have to have the capability to be dangerous. And then the interviewer asks him, why? Why is that? And he says, well, if you don't, then it's a given that you're a pansy. It's a given that you're a paper tiger. You've got no teeth. You're not going to react. You're going to let people step all over you. They have to know that there's a possibility that this might pop off. I believe in that. I really do. It is the unwritten rule of the street. Don't start none, and there won't be none. That always has to exist, not just for gun owners, for everybody, right? For these women, for you and I, for everybody. It's kind of how respect works, right? You can respect people out of courtesy, out of the goodness of your heart, and say, oh, this is my fellow human being. I love this person. But you can also realize that if I speak out of turn, I might get smacked in the face, and vice versa. If this guy gets out of turn, I might smack him in the face. And, I mean, there are low-level violations, and I'm not encouraging violence. I'm just saying there has to be a capability for this. And I bring this up just because I saw a video today, good Twitter account called Radio Genoa. I guess they're from Genoa, Italy, is my presumption. I don't know for the facts. But I know this stuff is not happening here yet. But they put a lot of different videos of things happening. And they had a video of public transportation, looked like a train or a subway. And a man gets on the train, and he's banging the glass, and he's banging on the wall, and he's yelling at a woman at the top of his lungs very aggressively. And she looks like she's with her daughter, like a teenage daughter. And she like tells her mom, "Look, come on, let's go." And apparently, I don't understand the language he's speaking. He appears to be Middle Eastern. They appear to be kind of Eastern European or something like that. And ultimately what happens is he yells at her. She gets up with her daughter. They go to the other side of the train. He sits down there, and he's still like huffing and puffing and speaking under his breath. And I don't think there's assigned seats on the train. So it seemed like he was upset with these people. And I don't know what he said, but, the caption was indicating that this guy was, in effect, saying something rude. And I think I tweeted it out saying, at what point do we stop saying, "Oh, this isn't worth it"? Because there was a bunch of men on that train. And at what point you're going to spend the rest of your day going to work going, "Oh, yeah, I saw this guy bully the crap out of this lady and her kid. Oh, no, I didn't do anything." How much of your day can you get through? Now, isn't it better to show up at work with a busted nose, with a black eye, with a busted lip, a couple of scuffs on your knuckles? People say, "Oh, what happened to you?" "I fell down." Or whatever. Somebody was bullying the crap out of this lady and her kid. I told him to stop, and, we got into it for a couple of stops on the train. But he stopped. Or he beat the crap out of me. But I did what I had to do. My dad would be proud. At what point do we stop worrying about the lawsuit, worrying about the disorderly persons charge that you probably aren't even going to get, especially if you're in New York? What happened to men being men? Anyway, I want to continue our conversations with you all. I see we got calls from Florida, calls from South Carolina. We've got a lot lined up for you tonight. Our buddy Hans Mahncke is going to be joining us. He's the founder and publisher of Truth Over News. And we're going to have a really, really interesting discussion about a couple of interesting things that are going on, especially with the hearings coming up for Marco Rubio, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and so much more. So keep it locked right here, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Should birthright citizenship come to an end? I'll leave that up to the president to make that decision. But what's your opinion? Do you think it should? I'll say this. Birthright citizenship is a major driver of illegal immigration. And that's what the whole controversy is about right now, right? If you come in the country illegally, which is a crime, you get ordered, you lose your hearing, the federal judge says you must go home, or you don't show up in court and you get what they call an order in absentia, order removed, and have a U.S. citizen child. People think they should be immune. The law means nothing to you now because you knew you're in the country illegally. You chose to have an illegal alien. You chose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're in the country illegally, knowing you're ordered deported, and you went and made that decision. That's on you.
That is Tom Homan. He was on NBC News with Gabe Gutierrez yesterday, saying that birthright citizenship is a major driver of illegal immigration. And I want to bring our guest into the fold on this conversation, Hans Mahncke. He's founder and publisher of Truth Over News. He's been terrific on a number of topics over the years. And Hans, this conversation between incoming border czar Tom Homan and Gabe Gutierrez from NBC News, it didn't stop there. I got another quick clip I want to play for you. Listen to this.
Will mass deportation hurt the economy?
I think mass deportation and results of mass deportation are more important to this country than anything. I don't put a price on Laken Riley's life. I don't put a price on all these young women who have been raped and murdered. I don't put a price on our national security. What price do you put on national security? So I think the national security of this nation, we can't afford another 9/11. We can't keep affording American citizens dying at the hands of illegal aliens.
I agree with what he's saying, but I want to, again, formally welcome our guest, Hans Mahncke. He is a founder and publisher of Truth Over News. He talks about the legal issues, the geopolitical issues, and everything else that's going on. And one of the big legal issues I think we're going to face is the lack of immigration judges in adjudicating all of these deportations. Hans Mahncke, what do you think of this conversation?
Well, I mean, it sounds good, but of course we've seen over the past, few decades, it seems sometimes like an intractable problem. It certainly was during Trump's first term. I mean, I also heard the other day people kind of toning down expectations. So I think Tom Homan has the right idea. I think we can expect more than what happened in the first term. But it's one of those wait and see ones, just because it's such a massive problem that's just been lingering for so many decades. Where do you even start? That's sort of the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think this is not unique just to immigration, Hans. I think we're going to see stuff like this all over the place. I think you're going to see some people acquiesce on their position. I'm not saying Homan per se, but I think he's not alone, right? He's got to have a whole team of people, and I'm sure his management team is going to be very gung-ho. But ultimately, there's going to be some career people in there, and those career people, a.k.a. the deep state, this is what they do. They do things to thwart agendas. They do things to deny, to delay. We've seen it before, and I hope we don't see it again, but I can't imagine that we won't. Just think of RFK Jr. He's bringing in a very aggressive agenda. I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be some people pushing back on him as well.
Oh, for sure. Then you also have the GOP people inside your own party. I mean, you had why did the border wall not get built during Trump 45? Well, it was the GOP who blocked the funding initially. So there's just a lot of pushback from all kinds of different sides. But
Hans, don't let the music scare you. We're coming right back. We're going to take a quick pause. Folks, we're on with Hans Mahncke. He's the founder and publisher of truthovernews.org. Great website, lots of good articles. Check it out, truthovernews.org. We're coming right back with Hans to continue talking about these appointments, what's going on in D.C., what we could expect for inauguration, and so much more. We're 6 days away. Don't go anywhere. Rich Valdez coming back with our guest, Hans Mahncke.
Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
So the notion that we would stop military assistance to a friend under assault from all those different fronts was not something that sat well with the president. But he did take the very strong view that while we were going to stand up for Israel's defense and security, we also were going to speak out on principle on protecting the basic rights and lives of civilians in Gaza. And that meant pushing Israel when we felt they went too far. It meant pushing for more humanitarian assistance. And we do believe that our interventions with respect to the flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza did save lives and did stave off the famine that was warned about at multiple points over the course of the past 2 months. Too many civilians have died. Too many Palestinians have gone through hell. I acknowledge all of that. But I believe that the United States has taken a clear position over the course of the past 14 months in support of the defense of Israel and in working to try to minimize civilian harm and maximize humanitarian assistance in Gaza.
That's National Security Spokesman Jake Sullivan, right? Is that his job? Anyway, NSA on MSNBC yesterday. And this has been a big thing, right? Because all over the weekend, you had a lot of people, former State Department people, all sorts of people weighing in on this. Trump has drawn a line in the sand when it comes to the hostages, saying, look, if there's any hostages left and they're not released by the day I take office, which is 6 days from today, all hell will break loose. That's what Trump said. So now I think we're seeing a lot of people making moves. And, of course, Joe Biden's trying to take all of the credit for it. I want to get reaction to that from our guest. His name is Hans Mahncke. He is the founder and publisher of Truth Over News. And, Hans, what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, that's a typical Trump move. Usually works. So does it really matter if Biden takes the credit? I mean, if the hostages get out, then that's what we all want. So we'll see what happens. We'll also have to see what Trump has got planned. I don't think it was just empty rhetoric. He has some plan, but as we were saying before the break, the problem is personnel, and it was a big problem in the first term. But It looks a lot better now because he can't. There are so many construction sites all over the map in terms of we already talked about immigration. You mentioned Robert Kennedy. Him being thwarted and trying to clean up the entire HHS, which is a giant mess. You got DOJ is a huge mess. FBI is a huge mess. I mean, there's so many problems, and you just need the right people. And to be fair, I think it just looks a lot better this time around in terms of having the right people there. Not everyone, but certainly a lot better, because let's not forget, during Trump's first term, I mean, he was surrounded by snakes. I mean, so much of the damage that was done to him by supposedly his own people, which they never were, but, they pretended to be.
100% right. And I think, Trump's that guy, fool me once. Okay. It's not happening again. He's come, he's loaded for bear. I think obviously he's at this point, I think he holds the record as the person who's run for president more than anybody, right? He's been in more debates than anybody that's alive, which is pretty cool. I mean, it gives him a unique level of experience where he went from being a guy who'd never run for anything and became president to being the guy that, has run for president now 3 times and has more experience than everybody. And I think it bodes really well for him, because you could see the experience in every move he makes. For me, every time he speaks, it's very evident that he knows exactly what he's got to say, what he's got to do, because he's been down this road before.
They say older and wiser, and it sort of sounds cliched, but the first time it really hit me that you can teach an old dog a new trick was during that first debate with Biden, all the way back in June of last year. The old Trump would have jumped all over Biden and would have, kind of done the Trumpian thing. But the Trump we saw that night, and it was totally overwhelmed me in terms of, oh my goodness, he's really learned all these lessons and he's become so good at this. He let Biden destroy himself. He didn't butt in, he didn't do anything. He just let Biden completely fall apart on that stage. And to me, that was sort of the huge turning point. And, the whole election campaign, Trump was super disciplined, self-controlled. It was just amazing. And we're seeing more of that. I think the whole transition has been like that as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, you mentioned RFK Jr., and I think he's, we looked at Hegseth. I had a big conversation about that earlier. I think Hegseth is a fine appointment. A lot of people say, "Oh, no, he's not a fine appointment. He's a problematic one." But I think there's no issue. I think no matter whom he would have picked, unless it would have been somebody they really like the snakes that you mentioned before, those are the only people they were going to approve, and that's how they did it. Right? Last time they said, "No, you got to go with Bill Barr because he was already AG. Nobody else will get approved by the Senate." Blah blah blah. I think now he's realized, no, screw you. I'm picking the people I want, the people I can trust. And he's gotten very, very aggressive with these people, right? Bringing in a great team of people, not just for the cabinet, but for people around him: Musk, Ramaswamy, RFK Jr. And clearly they're going to try and stop RFK Jr. because he poses a very big threat. Trump poses a threat to the deep state. RFK Jr. poses a threat to big pharma. What do you? I'm guessing they win, not the deep state. I'm saying Trump and these guys because they have a lot on their side. But what do you think they've got up their sleeve to try and slow him down?
That's a really interesting question. And as you say, with RFK, they're coming at him from different sides, meaning that there's different interest groups who don't want him in there for their own reasons. So Big Pharma don't want him in there for their own reasons. You got medical industry in general. You got the whole food industry. I mean, there's a lot of different angles.
Yeah. He's pissing off a lot of people.
There's also one big one. And to me, that's one of those where I think that's where they're going to try and really trip him up. And that's COVID and sort of just working through everything that happened from vaccine mandates all the way back to where this thing originated. And, you know, we just put out an article today. There was a deep dive into one guy who's trying to sabotage the confirmation of RFK. Most people have probably never heard of this guy. He's a congressman. He's called Jake Auchincloss. And he's been working super hard to prevent RFK from becoming secretary. And it turns out that Jake's dad was Fauci's number 2. And Jake's dad was knee-deep in the cover-up of not only of COVID's origin, but also of the NIH more generally in terms of corruption and things like that. Everything basically to do with Fauci. This guy stood by Fauci's side for the past 16 years. And now he's got his son in Congress trying to prevent RFK from becoming the new head of HHS. So that is, that's very telling, isn't it? So
I didn't know anything about that, but it's perfect fit for the swamp.
It is. And of course, that's just one example. And we took a deep dive on that one. But we know that they're doing other things. We just don't quite know what it might be. But I certainly expect a lot of pushback. I mean, I think after today, Hegseth is through. He's safe. He did great. But RFK will be more difficult. I think ultimately, I agree with you. They'll get him through, but they will throw a lot of different stuff at this guy, and they'll come from all kinds of different angles, some of which we can't even predict right now.
What's your predictions on Pam Bondi and Kash Patel?
So Pam Bondi, I think, is going to get in. We don't really know that much about her. You know, I just recently wrote a book on Russiagate, and of course, Kash Patel is absolutely huge on that. He was one of the first people on that case. Pam Bondi is, she's going to be in DOJ, and she never really said much about the whole thing. Whereas Matt Gaetz, who was nominated before her, of course, he was one of the first who spoke up about this hoax way back in 2016-17. So I don't really know what to expect of her, but I'm pretty sure she'll get in. Now, Kash, of course, he has to get in, but it's going to be a lot tougher than Pam Bondi. I don't know what's going to happen. We haven't really – I think they're just warming up. It was very good to send out Hegseth first because he was super. I mean, he was so well prepared. He batted everything down that they threw at him. So we're going to wait and see. But I think if Kash prepares well – and deals with them like Hegseth did today, he should be okay. And he is exactly the right guy for the FBI. Because remember, this is the organization that launched an investigation into the sitting president on the basis of a hoax.
Outstanding. I agree. I would hope Kash Patel gets in and destroys it from the inside out quickly to rebuild it the right way. Hans Mahncke, I want to just make sure everybody knows about your book. The book, Swiftboating America, exposing Russiagate fraud from the Steele Dossier to the FBI's Coissfire hurricane investigation by Hans Mahncke. Check it out on Amazon. You can get a copy of it ASAP. And Hans, let everybody know how to find you, how to find your work. Where's the best place to reach you?
Well, I mean, the book is a good place. You can also go over to truthovernews.org. So that's where I publish, like the article on Auchincloss that we just talked about, many, many other articles. I think that would work.
Outstanding. Check them out. Truthovernews.org, and check out the book, Swiftboating America. Hans Mahncke, I appreciate you joining us. Godspeed to you, sir.
Thanks so much for having me on.
You bet. And amigos, your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Just elaborating a little bit about the wokeness, where it comes from, and who will be held accountable.
The wokeness comes not from the uniform ranked, Senator, but from the political class. On day one, on January 20th, when President Trump is sworn in, he will issue a new set of lawful orders. And the leadership of our services will have an opportunity to follow those lawful orders or not. Those lawful orders will not be based on politics. They will be based on readiness, accountability, standards, and lethality. That is the process by which leaders will be judged. And accountability is coming. Because everybody in this room knows, if you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they're throwing the book at you. Mm-hmm. But if you're a general who loses a war, you get a promotion. That's not going to happen in Donald Trump's Pentagon.
That's Pete Hegseth, nominee for Secretary of Defense, and doing a remarkable job, I believe, in his hearing today for confirmation as secretary. And I want to go to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Mike calling us from Toronto, Canada, listening to us on WVMT out of Vermont. Mike, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Rich. Rich, I had a question for you. For years, like the general said, they were able to use the DEI platform to level the playing field a bit, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah, well, I think what he was talking about was how the United States military was bringing in black soldiers at a time where there was still segregation, and they were kind of ahead of the curve on, combating segregation internally. Whereas today we're going the opposite direction, where we're segregating some people and kind of creating this white hatred, if you will.
Well, I think I agree with that part of it because the American Armed Forces was at the forefront of integration. But you have to understand it still wasn't where it should be. But my point is, though, I'm really surprised that nobody's spoken to Trump about that because President-elect Trump, or President Trump, he was a big proponent of that. I remember years before he became the president, he was big on that, and he wanted equality. He pushed for that, even when he was.
Well, actually, there's a big cut today. I don't know if we have it. Let me know, Count Delacula, if we have it. But Pete Hegseth was making the same case, saying that he's going to be pushing for equality, but not for equity. And I think that the big push for equity and DEI and all of these things was an unfair advantage for some people while attacking others, as opposed to giving everybody an equal opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with him on that part, but you have to understand it's not everybody who's in power has that mindset. Some are still old-fashioned; they still carry that old mindset. But I understand his point of view, and yeah, if he wants to go in that direction, it's the right way to go. But it's just so many members. There's a million members in the military. It's tough. Everybody has their own. Some people have their own agenda, some don't. But I think they're just trying to level the playing field a little bit more. And maybe it shouldn't be with equity. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think equity is definitely the wrong approach. I think the right approach is, my brother was a Marine. And when you become a Marine, like most of the military, they make you shave your head. You become, doesn't matter what color you are. You could be Asian, you could be black, you could be whatever. You shave your head and you become green. right? And they all become the same person. They all bleed red, white, and blue, and they all look out for one another. And I think that harmony that exists in the armed services in the United States, or existed, has dissipated somewhat, and I think they're trying to get back to that, and I think that's the right place to be. So good observation. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody listening in Canada. Always good to hear from our friends up north. And I want to continue. Let us go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, can you hear me? Jerome, are you there? Calling
Yes,
Jerome.
I am.
There we go. What's
Yes,
up,
I
brother?
am. I'm here.
All right, say something.
What's up?
All right, you got nothing, huh?
Yeah. I didn't believe I got on that quick, but hey, nice rope-a-dope today, Pete. 99 balls of beer on the wall. All kinds of problems. Hey, look here. It's all partisan. And Joni Ernst, what a sellout. That's all
listen.
They're a bunch of sellouts.
What are they selling out to?
Trump,
Truth,
they're a bunch
justice,
of
the
sellouts.
American way?
Selling out is now. Selling
Come
out.
on, Jerome,
And
listen.
Obama-
You can't sit here and tell me that you somehow, whether you believe it or not, you think because Pete Hegseth might have had a drink somewhere that somehow he's not going to be an effective Secretary of Defense? What I heard in the hours that he was in the hearing today, he sounded better today than Lloyd Austin has ever sounded.
A drink. Hey, he banging one woman, knock her up, then go bang another woman, knock her up. They
I'm
gotta
not
pull
saying
him out
that's
of-
true. I'm pretty sure that's false, but presuming it is, does that make him a bad person to run this department?
He's not qualified. He's about as qualified as I am. And I know I'm not qualified.
Oh, boy. I can't get anywhere with you. Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. I hope I see you this weekend in Washington, D.C. to be celebrating Donaldus Magnus El Trompito and his inauguration. Folks, keep it locked right here. We're coming right back. Your call's coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Getting caught up in the bumper music. I love this stuff. Anyway, quickly, we got to be short, punchy, pithy, and succinct. Let's go to David in San Francisco streaming the show, richvaldez.com. David, go for it quickly.
Well, how are you, Rich? I don't know if you've heard. I was listening to Catsimidis' interview there, and he's extolling nuclear power plants. Now, you're close enough to 3 Mile Island. You're probably well aware that the .com crowd, specifically the Bitcoin crowd, want to buy 3 Mile Island. They want to buy 3 Mile Island and generate their Bitcoin mining, right? And Catsimidis, and I don't know if you've heard, but Trump wants to sell American gold and turn it into Bitcoin. So there have been examples of nuclear power plants. There was specifically one a year ago.
We're going to run out of time. Brevity and succinct. You didn't get it. You ruined it for everybody in America, David. I'm so mad. And I didn't get to Robert. Robert, your enemy is David from San Francisco, who blew his hot air and didn't say a damn thing. All right, America, I'll try better tomorrow. I'm sorry about that. I wanted to end on a better note. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.